Greetings, this is Tom with BuncombeShinola. You know, I've been living and playing music in and around Austin, Texas for about 15 years now. My mom is actually from Corpus, but I was actually raised in neighboring state New Mexico, mostly in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. And I still, after all this time, have to sort of acclimate myself to the idea that in a musical hub like Austin, you will have virtually every opportunity to see every musician that you are a fan of if they're still touring. For you to see virtually every band that you like within your lifetime, if you continue to live there, is a really easy thing. And this is very, very different from where I grew up. Although there was a somewhat steady stream of shows, especially fluff hard rock in the 80s, in neighboring big city Albuquerque. Certainly in the smaller capital city of Santa Fe, you know, good shows, especially punk shows, were very few and far between. And any sort of good show at all, you had to like work to go see. In fact, I remember later I drove all the way to Hollywood to see R.L. Burnside, thinking that I would never get an opportunity to see him, not knowing, of course, that later I would befriend him and his circle. And one time we drove all the way out to see the Boredoms, and they canceled the show. We didn't hear about it. But it's, you know, to catch good shows in that part of the country, you had to work at it. And there are shows that happen that built in their own sort of mystique and mythology. And one of them is coming up on the 35th anniversary, and that is Nirvana popping through town right after the release of Bleach, June 27th, 1989. On a very scrappin' punk trip well before their Bust Out tour for Nevermind. And I wanted to talk about that today since the anniversary is coming up. And I actually get asked about it quite a lot, especially since there is a little bit of video of this show. So there's a lot of killer footage of Nirvana from pretty early on. In fact, the show just 4 days prior, I will put a link in the description, at RHINO Records, is a much better shot and recorded set than with the show we're about to talk about right now. But I get asked about this a lot, and lots of people in Santa Fe and Albuquerque naturally talk about this show quite fondly, and I just want to talk about the mythology around it a little bit and just recollect. So my first high school punk band was with my friend Matt Miller, called The Floors. I started my band called MONKEYSHINES a little bit later. And we were friends with a band called 27 Devils Joking, which was sort of like the elder punk band on the scene. Brian worked really hard to give touring bands some sort of gig in Santa Fe, because between, you know, Arizona and Texas, you've definitely got quite a haul with not much potential action. He was nice enough to invite my band MONKEYSHINES to open the show, which was going to be his band 27 Devils Joking, which I later joined but was not in yet, and Nirvana, who was traveling through town. This was certainly not the regular, but this week there happened to be 3 good national touring act, such as they were, bands coming through town. 3 punk shows in 1 week, and Nirvana was one of these shows. It was at a venue called the Rockin' Teepee, which was sort of like the back space behind this liquor store on the edge of Santa Fe. They would have weddings and quinceaneras, and for some reason they were open to the idea of all-age punk shows happening there. It was run by this really cool older woman named Mrs. Tapia, and she does not appear in the Nirvana footage, but she does appear in some other footage from the show, and it's really great to see her. She was great, despite the fact that the liquor store and venue was right across the street from the police station. That did not keep her from being unfortunately killed in an armed robbery some years after this footage was shot. So yeah, this was just a year or two after high school, and so my virtually first band that I was sort of the leader of, it was one of our first shows, maybe the first show. My friend John Curtis was playing drums, my friend Neil Miller was playing guitar, and a bunch of my closest friends from high school, and my longest friends in my life, really, were in attendance that night. As well, an old acquaintance of mine named Sam Atakra brought a video camera, and definitely you can, in some of the alternate footage, you can see that it is a big, heavy camera. And his friend Nate Duran, who's a great photographer, you should find him on social media, decided they were going to film as much of the show as they could. Some other people jumped on the camera at different points as well. But my band was terrible. I'm really glad that that footage is not on YouTube right now. But we were just green, and we weren't, quite ready, but we had some charm in our set. I mean, we definitely played too long. I mean, the sun was still out when we started, and it was night for the rest of the show, so there you go. On the other hand, 27 Devils Joking, again, a band that I later joined, had just come off of a trip, and it was one of the tighter lineups that band ever had. Bobcat on drums and Tim Stroh on bass, and they tore it up. Man, they were great. They played just sort of like slightly, LSD fried, peyote fried, almost sort of like pre-grunge punk, They had like solos and stuff, I mean, Brian was a closeted deadhead. And then towards the end of the night, unfortunately, they did not film all of Nirvana. I'll get into that as we're talking here. But they did shoot 15 pretty enjoyable minutes of Nirvana, and it's pretty cool to see them in a really small venue in the video. Of course, I will link up to where you can view the entire clip on YouTube. I'll probably have it playing in the background here, but the audio is pretty intense. And again, as I've said, over the years, there's lots of talk, people in New Mexico, were you at that show, right? And lots of people claim to have been there, but there was certainly not more at any point than 100 people over the course of the evening. And truth be told, it was lots of people cleared out when Nirvana started. They were really, really loud, amongst other things, but I'll talk about that more as we're watching the video. But whatever, ups and downs I've had with some of the people that are connected to this footage, I am really glad that this little bit of Nirvana is preserved for posterity. And, there is like another at least hour of footage that's my band and the really good set by 27 Devils Joking that I have a copy of. I don't want to step on anyone's toes and try to throw it online. In fact, my copy is duplicate protected, so it's not even easy for me to try to get to and download. And of course, shortly after when Nirvana became humongous, when I finally joined 27 Devils Joking, we had the misfortune of being on the road, and several places we were just like a week or days after Nirvana, and the buzz was unbelievable. In fact, we played Dallas, I think just a night or two after the famous trees incident. Look that up if you don't know about it already. And of course, years later, when after Kurt killed himself, people's interest in the show is continued to build. I remember the 10th anniversary edition of Spin magazine printed. There was a whole issue devoted to him, and there was one of the articles was a gallery of extremely obscure or not obscure, just gig flyer art. And to my surprise, there was, the flyer for the Santa Fe show. It was pretty fun to, it felt like history, you feel like history, right? And then years later, fine gent by the name of Nick Soulsby got in touch with me. He'd already written one book about Nirvana, I'm pretty sure, and he was going to want to do another oral history about their band travels. And surprisingly, he got in touch with me, and I sent him some answers to the questions, and he was compiling the work, and I got back with him later and I said, hey, am I going to make the cut? He's like, oh no, you're in the book, man. Some of the stuff you said is really funny. And eventually the book came out. It's really, really a cool read. It's great to hear, what their meteoric rise was like, from the sort of sidelines of like fellow musicians that I idolize, included, just watching as this beast just grows and phenomena explodes out of control, right? And, there were lots of people who gave accounts of what it was like before that, and I was certainly one of them. And there are some other books have come out that are sort of visual histories of the band, and the iconography of the flyer for this show continues to perpetrate, propagate, make appearances. It's really nice to see. And much later, to my disbelief, a bootleg DVD popped up of like one of the of the footage, and I was like, who the hell would pay like $50 for this 14 or 15 minutes? But we all chuckled about it. And before I continue talking about the show specifically, and I'm going to go ahead and play the show in the background, I think to warm it up, it'd probably be good to read the text that they included on the back description of this DVD. Finally, here's the DVD of June 27th, 1989. The first 4.5 minutes of the video are pretty worthless shots of the crowd and miscellaneous stuff. But once Spank Through starts, the footage is excellent. Very close, nice shots. Unfortunately, the venue was extremely dark. The stage was only being lit by a couple standard light bulbs. And as the taper becomes uninterested in the band, the last minute or so is garbage footage as well. Yeah, let's check some of it out. And again, I will post a link so you can watch the show without me talking over it. But there's a lot less to hear than you might imagine. All right, let's start this. Okay, so as I stated, a bunch of old friends of mine are in this. This is my really dear friend Shanti, missing the pool shot. This is my friend Tim. That is my sister. She shouldn't be smoking that young. There's me. That is not my hair. That is me wearing some sort of weird, tight, fuzzy hat. Oh, and that's Chris Berry behind me. That girl in the white shirt I ended up dating. Steph, if you're out there, I hope you're doing okay. So the crowd may seem a bit sparse right now, but actually, even during my band set and 27 Devils Joking, the place was pretty packed. I want to say there was like a minimum 100 people there. But the truth of the matter is that Nirvana was loud, really loud. In fact, I don't think I'd ever seen a band at this venue, or maybe even like a punk band in real life at this point, that had stacks. Nirvana had stacks. Oh, there's my friend Bart. Oh, that dude ended up in Logical Nonsense. Nirvana, they were insanely loud. And they did a half hour, maybe 45-minute set. In the end, only a small amount of the crowd could handle it. But more importantly, I guess I would say, is that at this point there was still a sort of imagined divide between punk rock and heavy metal, and Nirvana simply seemed like a metal band. They seemed like a slow metal band. I mean, before sludge or grunge or whatever there was. I mean, they didn't. Oh, hey, there's Raina. That's cool. Oh, there's me walking by again. They obviously did not play fast, and they had huge stacks, and of course they had stoner long hair. This is back when Everman was still on the other guitar, and he looked really metal. They even had of course you've probably seen it in pictures, they had a backdrop of Elvis painted up to look like Alice Cooper behind them. They still had Chad Channing, the original drummer. Oh, that's my friend Medea's back. She was really cool. There was some weird painting with Groucho Marx on it. And this is one of the quotes that ended up in Nick Soulsby's book. It's that Nirvana, to me, a punk band looked like The Damned from Machine Gun Etiquette, right? Or something, right? Or the Ramones or whatever. But I mean, these guys did not look like punks. They looked like stoner, hard rock, metal guys, lumberjacks or whatever, right? I'm sure lots of people have said that, And the set list was aggressively audience unfriendly grunge. I mean, it was just heavy and slow. I think they start with School. They get to Floyd the Barber and Big Cheese here. In fact, the first part of the video here, I don't think there's any almost complete songs until we get about 5 or 8 minutes in. Spank Through is most of it, and then the only songs that sort of hinted at what Nirvana would be like later, they did Dive, which was a pretty interesting set inclusion for this point. And of course, they did About a Girl. Thankfully, those two are the most complete songs. They're coming up here, I think. No, we still haven't got to Spank Through, sorry. Yeah, they were challenging. They were a challenging listen, and they were certainly at a challenging volume. But again, it was, I think if you've ever seen the cover of the Popular Favorites by the Oblivions, there's a great shot of a front row at a Black Sabbath show, and someone is holding up a shirt that simply says "Kill a Punk for Rock." That's what being a punk rocker was like for me in high school. You know, I mean, dudes who like metal, not until AC/DC and Motorhead and kind of, you know, like, and new wave of BHM, you know, sort of smoothed over the divide. I mean, there was no overlap between those camps, man, and there was a lot of hostility and violence, frankly. So yeah, they just kind of seemed metal, kind of. Certainly more closer to punk, closer to metal than punk. So, I mean, so lots of people did hang out, and like I said, lots of people claimed to be at this show. But I'm telling you, there was no more than a couple dozen people hanging in for Nirvana by the time, you know, their set was getting to the end. Let's see. So at some point here, whoever has you know, I should have been watching the footage more. So at some point here, whoever has the camera relinquishes it to my friend Nate Duran, and he slowly crawls up to and creeps up to the front of the stage. And this is really, really tight in on Kurt here. This is just great stuff. And if you're not familiar with Kurt's long hair appearance, hippie era Bleach, this might be a little jarring. Actually, he does sport this look on the image for the flyer. Yeah, and you can see the Elvis backdrop pretty clearly in this section too. I actually have that same tapestry at my house, except without the Cooperisms. Of course, the PA which the PA was good enough for the other bands, but you know, I mean, once you know, it didn't stand a chance against, you know, 3 stacks, and Kurt is visibly, you know, like, oh, there's that Elvis backdrop. Chris was really funny the entire show. I mean, the PA just couldn't meet it, you know. Eventually, Kurt starts to get kind of annoyed, but the camera gets so close to his face that you can even sort of still make out his voice in the din, not from the PA. It's actually from just how close in his face he's getting, right? This is look at how close he is right there, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. So let's see here. I think we're still. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're still in Spank Through here. I think, like I said, Dive was like the first inkling of the set where the really just heavy hook-filled sound that we would, like, you know, associate with Nirvana really sort of like popped up. You know, and I like Bleach. Don't get me wrong. I love Bleach. I like Bleach. I love it. But you know, but you know, when they got catchy, and you know, I mean, you know, probably my favorite Nirvana record is Incesticide. Those crazy, like, you know, like poppy covers of grunge pop. You know, it's grunge bubblegum somehow. You know, I love that shit. I love that shit. But yeah, it's great to see so close here, man. So close. Again, the footage from 4 days previous, which is, I think, at RHINO Records in Southern California. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's, you know, it's well lit, and you can hear it a lot better, certainly, but there's just something about the really creepy, dark ambience of this show that it's still appealing to me no matter how many times I've seen it. You know, there was a room adjacent that had pool tables and stuff, and of course, you know, the amount of underage drinking going on in the parking lot outside was, you know, legendary. You know, a bunch of my friends are at that show, and you can see them drunk outside in the alternate footage, and they say, I can't remember that show at all. Oh man, I think at one point a member of the audience even just brazenly walked up to Novoselic to demand, quote, something fast, unquote. He just tilted his head back and laughed, you know. And I think they proceeded to play an even slower song from Bleach. But yeah, let's see here. Coming up about the 8 minutes is when they cut into Dive. It sounds pretty amazing with the 2 guitars, for sure. Poor, you know, Everman, you know, I mean, you know. I mean, he was in Nirvana, got thrown out. He got thrown. He was in Soundgarden. I think he got thrown out of there too. You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure he ended up in the military. You know, it's a very strange later story for a member of this band, right? You can definitely see that this is a very, very small room that they're playing in. if there was like 100 people in this building, this room and the adjacent room that had the pool tables in it, even if people were hanging out outside, I mean, it was tough to move. It was tough to move. There was tables, you know, off to the side, but yeah, it's, someone's got the back door open, so that people are hearing that. I know I was hanging out at that door before Nirvana's set, and I'm pretty sure Novoselic strolled by and thanked. And he just said to me, "Hey, that was cool. You guys covered Stiff Little Fingers because we used to play Wait and See." And I thought that was really cool of him. The rest of the guys were pretty sullen, though. I mean, stoner grungers. You know, of course they're sullen and like wasted, right? I mean, I'd be there myself soon enough, right? But yeah, I thought that was a nice thing for him to say. And again, you know, I've just never had any problem with like Chad's drumming. In fact, a bunch of the songs that ended up on Nevermind, there are demos with him on drums that still sound great. I think his abilities are somehow like falsely, you know, viewed with belittlement in hindsight. But he was a great drummer, man. He was a great drummer. That's straight up, man. And you can see he's got those weird 90 conical drums shells that flower out at the end. I was not ready for this sort of music. I think lots of people weren't, you know. Lots of people were ready for Nevermind. Lots of people were not ready for Bleach. You know, oddly enough, a lot of people in Albuquerque were ready for Bleach. In fact, there was sort of like a band that a label that popped up out of there called RHINO Records, which sort of modeled themselves after Sub Pop, and they caught a bunch of cool local bands on the scene down there, like Big Damn Crazy Weight. And I loved the band Elephant, and I loved, of course, the Drags were my all-time favorite New Mexico band. They ended up on Estrus Records. So yeah, eventually people opened up to this sort of scene for sure, this sort of tunes. But yeah, people were definitely starting to thin out here. You know, I mean, the first two bands, this place was packed, you know, and you couldn't stand in front of the stage for as many people who were slam dancing. But now, you know, there's definitely room to catch some really close footage of the band. Still in dive here. I know I think for the next song, I think this is going to get cut off here in a little bit. It's going to switch from a different angle, and that's when they play most of About a Girl. And that was certainly the biggest surprise of the set. I mean, you were just starting to get convinced there would not be a catchy melodic song the entire show. And then they bust out, you know, that magnificent slice of melodic juiciness. But yeah, we're getting to the end of dive now, and I think we're going to switch to, yeah, Kurt's getting a little bummed out at the PA for sure. Let's switch to a different angle. You can definitely see from the right side now, this is About a Girl. And, you know, certainly one of the bigger surprises of the set. I mean, then, you know, they bust this out, and you're just like, oh, wow, that's very different. You know, and I hope you can see there's not a lot of people left in there, man. Not a lot of people left. I think Brian claimed that one of the members of Nirvana even said, next time we open for you, which is comical in retrospect. I mean, who knew, man? Who knew that you were catching the biggest band of that time, you know, on the front end, you know? I mean, lots of people who were there wish they'd hung out longer, for sure, you know, and lots of people who weren't there say they were, but that's what it's like when you're in a small town and there's almost no cool gigs ever, and then you have like something like this happens and it just becomes like part of the local rock mythology. I mean, when I finally did land in Austin, it was very, very different, you know. I just talked to somebody and you say, oh yeah, I really like Charles Mingus. They're like, oh yeah, I saw Charles Mingus here. It's just like, that's a possibility that would have never been conceivable to me, right, you know, and but there's one thing that they cannot take away from our little scrapping group of local punk rockers in Santa Fe is that we had Nirvana play pre-fame, a show that just, you know, looms large still in all of our local recollection. It's about to cut off About a Girl. We got most of About a Girl. I mean, again, this footage, someone made a DVD of this. I mean, there's not a full song, even one full song, right? You got most of Dive and most of About a Girl. And we're going to switch to paper cuts, of course, you know. They're back to what most of the gig was like, you know, just like, wow, whoa, you know. And that'll carry us to the last 30 seconds or so here, and also get caught off again, you know what I mean? You know, I mean, even though they weren't clearly, whoever was at the camera at this point, I'm pretty sure it was still Nate. Might have been someone else. Could have been Andrew too, or Brock. And you still, you know, even if it wasn't something they were necessarily on board with, they were still like, let's capture some of this, you know, let's make a record of this, you know, just for posterity, you know, and they did. And so hopefully in your hometown, you know, there was someone who did something like this too. So, you know, I mean, you got like a chance to relive, you know, the very, oh wow, man, yeah, there's not too many people, but you know, it's a really interesting little episode to look back on and, like, you know, savor, relish, you know, and just chuckle at, like, you know, where stuff was headed that you never could have foreseen, and none of us could have foreseen, right? Like I said, no matter what might have transpired between me and any of the people that are connected with this, I'm still so grateful that this footage exists. I'm still so grateful to the opportunity to have played this show, and the opportunity to have later joined the other band, you know, certainly set me off on a course, my correct course, and deeply appreciative. And I'm so glad, and again, there's a couple hours of other footage of this that's not on YouTube, and just, it's so great to see so many people that I miss, so many people I'm still close to, and just great to see us all as kids having a cool time. So yeah, there you go. That's just my little video talking about something that happened 35 years ago. Pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy. I'm pretty sure 19 when this show happened. Like they say, man, getting old is not for the weak of heart. But sometimes it's pretty rich. It's pretty rich. Like I said, I will link up, of course, the original post, or at least the oldest post of this footage, so you can watch it with the sound. It can get a little intense, I'll tell you. But and also I will try to post links to Nick's book. It is a great read. Even if you're a marginal fan, I think you would find it a hilarious read. But it's if you're a Nirvana fan, it's great. It's totally great. Down in the description, I will also link you up to some YouTube playlists for Monkey Shines and 27 Devils Joking. I guess I'll put a link to if you want to try and buy that DVD. I have no idea on earth why you would want to, though. But shit. I know my buddy George at Lost Padre Records in Santa Fe, New Mexico is holding some sort of event commemorating the anniversary, and I think they might be having T-shirts printed of the very cool flyer. So yeah, I'll post up a link so you can check out his shop too, and you should certainly stop by anytime you're in northern New Mexico. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments if you caught any crazy early Nirvana shows. And, well, I mean, I know a bunch of people that were at the Tree show, so it's going to be hard to top that, but do let me know. Do let me know. And have a cool day. I'll be talking to you again soon.